It's Mr. Y, the Soul Studies guy, with another episode focusing on our Ohio Commission for America's 250. This is a great time, and right now in this month of March, we're focusing on entertainment with movies, TV, and music. And it's really wonderful because every month we'll have different free movies throughout the state of Ohio. And we're here in Fremont, Ohio at the Paramount Cinema. And next month, we'll be having free movies of the Hunger Games right here at this cinema, which is a beautiful place. So what we're going to do is talk about movies made in Ohio. We're going to talk about Ohio movie stars, some you maybe never heard of, and some that are very popular. And we're going to really make it a fun time for you here while we're at the Paramount Cinema in Fremont, Ohio.
When it comes to the silver screen, Ohio is noted for many things. We've had famous actors, we've had movies that were set in Ohio, and it's a long, long history going back to basically when movies started. We find Ohio had a role in it. When we look at the different people that have been here in Ohio, we see people like the Warner Brothers, and people realize, oh yeah, that's great. Where are they from? Well, they're from Youngstown, Ohio. And they had the first huge movie theaters in this state. Now, today, when we think about movies in Ohio, the first movie we probably think of is The Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption was filmed in the Mansfield Reformatory, which was at a closed prison, but by having the movie, they decided not to tear the prison down, but to actually make it into a museum. And now they use it for different things. They even have concerts there at this museum. And it's really kind of cool because they also have a Shawshank Trail, which takes to 13 different places in Ohio that are used in the movie. So I really would think that would be something you might want to take advantage of. The other movie, which of course what people think of when they think of Ohio, is the Christmas Story movie. Christmas Story movie, the house is in Cleveland, Ohio, just not far from downtown in the Tremont neighborhood of Cleveland. And it's really a really cool place to go through. If it's a cult movie, obviously, Christmas Story. But one of the things besides having a great gift shop, if you want leg lamp, or anything like that from the movie, you could also stay the night in the Christmas house or else in the Bumpus house, which is right next door, if you remember that from the movie. So those are the two movies I think people really think about when they think about Ohio. Cleveland has also been the home of many different blockbuster movies. The latest Superman movie was filmed in Cleveland. Spider-Man 3, The Avengers, Captain America, The Winter Soldier. We find out as we start talking about these movies that Cleveland was a major site for a lot of them. And one of the movies I really enjoyed, maybe you remember it, because I love baseball, is Major League. Now, Major League was mostly filmed in Milwaukee, but all the opening scenes to that, it was about that, at that time, hapless Cleveland Indians. It was not a true story, but they were hapless at that time. Even worse than the movie. But anyway, what happens is all the opening credits are all scenes of Cleveland. And the song Burn On by Randy Newman, when you talk about music, is used as that theme song along the way. Now, another music movie filmed in Cleveland, one that I really enjoyed myself, is called Light of Day. And that was the first movie starring Michael J. Fox after he was a star in Back to the Future. That was his next film. And this is a great movie with a Bruce Springsteen song, Light of Day. And his co-star was the rocker Joan Jett. And this is a great movie. And actually, I think you'd really enjoy it if you get a chance to see it. A lot of people don't remember it. But it's Light of Day, filmed in Cleveland. Cleveland also had a very famous movie called The Deer Hunter. And that movie was about some people that went off to war and came back and had issues dealing with different things related to war. And that was filmed in Cleveland, and there's a very famous scene in that movie, a bar scene, which is filmed in Mingo Junction down on the Ohio River. Now, Sandusky itself lays claim to Tommy Boy, a Chris Farley movie, which is a real cult movie also, and Sandusky has made that into a tourist attraction as far as the Tommy Boy things along the way. Now, when we talk about our actors and actresses, the first person we have to talk to, obviously, is Clark Gable. One of the greatest movies ever made, Gone with the Wind, talking about that Civil War era. And Clark Gable was in many other different movies, from Cadiz, Ohio, down in southeastern Ohio. And he would be the first person we talked to. But there's other ones also. Paul Newman, one of my favorite actors. Paul Newman was from Cleveland, Shaker Heights, actually, one of the suburbs. And Paul Newman was in a lot of wonderful movies like The Sting, Butch Cassidy, The Sundance Kid, and one of my favorites, Cool Hand Luke. If you've never seen that movie, you need to see it. Cool Hand Luke, it's a great one. Joel Grey from Cleveland was the lead in Cabaret, and Margaret Hamilton from Cleveland, well known as the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz. So we find a lot of Cleveland connections here with our movies along the way. But one person I really need to talk about, who's one of my favorites, I grew up in the 1950s, Cowboys were kings, and the king of the Cowboys was Roy Rogers, the great movie star Roy Rogers, who was from Cincinnati. And Roy Rogers was a person that just emphasized what these westerns were all about. He was always the good guy, and he said his home was actually the second base of the baseball field down in Cincinnati. So I want you to think about Roy Rogers. Some people think, oh, I remember the roast beef places, but look at his movies along the way. Now, Elizabeth Hartman was a wonderful actress from Youngstown, Ohio, who starred in Patch of Blue. She played a blind girl in that particular movie, and she was nominated for so many different awards on her acting ability. And I would really encourage you to look at some of her movies. And someone you probably have never heard of before, Pat Billiard, also from Youngstown. Now, people say, who the heck is Pat Billiard? But if you remember the iconic movie E.T., he was E.T. He was E.T. in that movie, so we want to think about that along the way. Now, I mentioned, of course, Dean Martin, the only person on all three of our categories, the great Dean Martin from Steubenville. And he was in westerns like Rio Bravo with John Wayne. He was in the original Ocean's 11. He was in the two of my favorites, the Cannonball Run films. So we've had so many different actors. We can't have time to talk about all of them along the way, but we encourage you to go to the movies in Ohio.
Right now we're in downtown Fremont at the Music Amphitheater. Now this is a really new thing in Ohio. A lot of these smaller cities are building these music amphitheaters. And for example, Tiffin has a wonderful one. There's a lot of different places that have really gone into this route, so making sure that we could have live music for everybody without having to go into a bar, for example. So this is a new thing in Ohio. You're seeing a lot of different places that have these, and we're very proud of this one here. Now, when it comes to music, the Buckeye State really rocks. Many of you have probably visited the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in downtown Cleveland. But did you realize the major reason it was built on the shores of Lake Erie in Cleveland? It's a really interesting story. A local disc jockey that grew up in Salem, Ohio, and learned his craft at WKBN in Youngstown played a critical role in the population of rock and roll music. His name was Alan Freed. And a lot of people that are music fans know that name because what happened was in 1951, Freed was hired in Cleveland, Ohio, and he was hosting a classical music show. And a friend of his, Leo Mintz, was the owner of the largest record store in Ohio, Record Rendezvous. Now, what happened was that he would play music in his store, and he was actually the first person to put music in bins. We're so used to seeing that in music stores. But anyway, he'd play a lot of what would they call at that time race music, okay? And that was rhythm and blues, particularly by black artists. And he noticed that all his white younger customers, when he put that music on, would dance all around the store. And he came up with the term rock and roll, which was an old term they used for the blues musicians at that particular time. So what happened was he talked to Alan Freed and said, hey, let's try playing some of those songs that these kids love on your show. So he decided to do that. And that developed actually into a 3-hour long show of nothing but this rock and roll music, such a great phenomenon. And what happened was that Freed himself started the first rock concert. He called himself the Moondog, and the first rock concert was the Moondog Coronation Ball, and that was the beginning of the rock concert that we see all around Ohio today. Ohio is noted for many popular musicians and also for a lot of songs about Ohio. So let's start with songs first. Ohio, that song by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, which talked about the tragic events at Kent State during the student protests. That was a song that meant a lot to people, particularly in my generation. And I think that for a lot of us, if you haven't heard that, please go ahead and listen to the lyrics of that along the way. Now, on a much happier note, particularly if you're a fan of the best damn band in the land, the Ohio State Buckeyes, you know the song Hang On Sloopy. Well, Hang On Sloopy was by the McCoys, who were from Fort Recovery, Ohio, on the Indiana state line. They became very popular in Dayton as a local bar band, but a lot of people don't know this. They had already moved to New York City when they recorded the song Hang On Sloopy. But that is our official Ohio State rock song. Okay? So there's so many other songs that we're going to talk about. One interesting story is that the progressive rock band Yes wrote a song called Our Song about a gig they played at the old Toledo Sports Arena where reportedly on stage the temperature reached 126 degrees. So again, that's a band I really enjoy, Yes. So if you haven't heard that, please go and hear it. Now, speaking of Toledo, there's a song by John Denver. We all love our John Denver songs, but this one here, Saturday Night in Toledo, Ohio. A lot of people in Toledo don't like this song because John Denver in his lyrics makes it sound like it was a pretty boring place to be at along the way. Now, not just picking on Toledo with musicians, as I mentioned this earlier in our movie theme about the film Major League. Randy Newman wrote a song called Burn On, which is about when the Cuyahoga River, the mighty Cuyahoga that goes through downtown Cleveland, caught on fire. Interesting lyrics. You need to listen to it. And by the way, he wrote this about the river catching on fire, not the mayor, Ralph Perk's hair catching on fire, which happened during that same era. And that was so Cleveland got a lot of notoriety about fire. So Burn On by Randy Newman, one of the songs that we need to really think about. Now, one of my favorite performers, Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders, is from Akron, Ohio, and she wrote a song, My City Is Gone, because she was living in England. That's where she got her band together and stuff, but she kept very close roots to Akron, Ohio. And when she came back to visit, she saw the effects of poverty on the rubber city. Bruce Springsteen also wrote and performed an ode to the hardworking steel employees of the Mahoning Valley with his song Youngstown. And on a much happier note, Hawthorne Heights, a popular band from Dayton, wrote Ohio is for Lovers. And a song I think a lot of you know of, Ian Hunter, formerly of the band Mott the Hoople, wrote the great Northeast Ohio theme song, Cleveland Rocks. It would take us a long, long time to talk about all the famous musicians from Ohio, but special note goes to the only person found in all three categories, movies, TV, and music. And of course, that's Dean Martin of Steubenville, who had many different popular songs, but one of my favorites, being half Italian, that's Amore. Now, we've already mentioned Chrissie Hynde of Akron, but just down the road in Kent was the home of Devo. Going south from Akron, okay, to Canton was the home of Marilyn Manson. And of course, Cleveland was the home of many different musicians, including the Raspberries, Nine Inch Nails, Michael Stanley Band, and two members of Guns N' Roses, Steven Adler and Gilby Clarke. Staying in northern Ohio, Dave Grohl of Nirvana and Foo Fighters is from Warren. Maynard James Keenan of Tool is from Ravenna. And going to our capital city of Columbus, we have 21 Pilots. Now, interesting note, which a lot of people don't know, and I was a big Beach Boy fan, is that the co-founder of the Beach Boys, Al Jardine, is from Ohio, from Lima, Ohio. And he was the person that sang lead on one of their absolute biggest songs. I'm not going to sing it. Help Me, Rhonda. Okay. Now, one of the interesting things about Ohio is we have a lot of different genres of music. And I greatly enjoy soul music. And the Isley Brothers are one of my absolute favorite groups from Cincinnati. They influenced a lot of different musicians. We had the OJs, a very popular band, the OJs, from Canton, Ohio, and the Ohio Players from Dayton, Ohio. And we need to celebrate, think of the song, celebrate Kool and the Gang from Youngstown, Ohio. So again, a lot of soul music here. The rap group Bone Thugs and Harmony from Cleveland. And another genre we don't talk much about is polka music. Polka music is known in Ohio through so many of our largest cities, and the actual king of polka himself, Frankie Yankovic, is from Cleveland. Now, there are many, many other musicians. We don't have time to talk about all of them, but I could tell you, not only does Cleveland rock, but Ohio rocks.
All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about television in Ohio. Now, television, of course, is such an interesting phenomenon. I mean, I grew up in the era where black and white TVs were the norm, and I can remember when the first color TV in the neighborhood, I mean, everybody wanted to go over and see that. We were just amazed at color TV. But TV has, of course, obviously, as you know, has transitioned, and we have these giant screens now. We have all kinds of different things. But Ohio has a large number of people that were either in TV shows. We have TV shows about Ohio. We have a lot of actors and actresses from Ohio. We can't mention them all, but one that you might remember, one of my favorite comedies, WKRP in Cincinnati. And it's interesting because the two of the leads, okay, Gary Sandy and Gordon Jump, were both from Dayton, Ohio, of all places, you know what I mean? So that was kind of cool. Now, one of my shows that I really enjoyed was called Route 66. Route 66 followed two young guys in a Corvette traveling all around the country, visiting different places, doing different types of jobs. This was one of the most popular shows on television. And what was great about it is that they filmed things live. So they hired extras when they went around to these different towns. And they filmed in Ohio, they filmed in Youngstown, Ohio, with some great shots of the steel mills at that time. Youngstown was known for that. They also filmed in Kinsman, a small town north of Youngstown, which was one of my favorite episodes. And they also filmed 3 episodes in Cleveland. So you go back and watch those, Route 66, you'll see a lot of things about Ohio, and particularly how Ohio has changed. Now, a lot of people, of course, love Betty White from the Golden Girls, but you know what? She was also in Hot in Cleveland. And she had a lot of fun with that role, and that was all, again, with a lot of Cleveland landmarks and things along the way. And of course, we had the Drew Carey show. Drew Carey, right from Cleveland, and his show really focused, again, talking about a lot of different things along the way. The show Third Rock from the Sun showed a fictional town of Rutherford, which was called Rutherford, Ohio. So that was another one that we mentioned. Now, there was a lot of real popular actors and actresses from Ohio. One of my favorites, Ed O'Neill from Youngstown, Married with Children, good old Al Bundy, okay, also in Modern Family. Patricia Heaton from Cleveland, and another show I always enjoyed, Everybody Loves Raymond. Luke Perry, the late Luke Perry, a great actor, okay, from Beverly Hills 90210, from Fredericktown. Luke Grimes from Columbus, from the hit show Yellowstone. Now, one of my favorite comedies when I was growing up was called McHale's Navy. I never missed an episode of McHale's Navy because I just thought it was so funny, but 2 of the leads were from Ohio. Tim Conway from Willoughby, and then later in Chagrin Falls, and Joe Flynn from Youngstown. So I think it's really great that 2 of the leads from that popular show were there. And speaking of popular shows, we all love Gilligan's Island, and The Millionaire, Jim Backus, also known as the voice of Mr. Magoo, the popular cartoon show. Jim Backus was from Cleveland also. So we had Halle Berry from Cleveland. Halle Berry, noted actress in our James Bond movies, for example. Comedian I enjoy, Dave Chappelle from Yellow Springs. George Clooney. George Clooney, I guess, could have been on the movie list also, but of course, starting out on TV as a popular character from Cincinnati, Ohio. Everybody loves National Lampoon's movies. How could you not love them? They're great, okay? And of course, in those things, Chevy Chase's wife was played by Beverly D'Angelo from Columbus. Phyllis Diller was a noted comedian, and Phyllis Diller was on TV a lot. She had wild hair, the long fingernails, I mean, the long, back when cigarettes were on TV all the time, but the long cigarette holder. And she was from Lima and was a very popular comedian. And of course, Hollywood Squares was a wonderful show, a very popular TV game show. And Paul Lynde from Mount Vernon, who was also featured on Bewitched. Paul Lynde was always the middle square, the comedian Paul Lynde. But we can't talk about TV without talking about one of the real masters of the genre, Bob Hope. The Bob Hope Show was one of the most popular shows forever and ever. And Bob Hope was from Cleveland. So many comedians, so many people credit Bob Hope with the popularity of television. And then finally, we're talking about him once again, Dean Martin. And Dean Martin was known for the Dean Martin Show and his Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts. And my gosh, they were really funny. So we've had a lot of Ohioans involved with TV. Check them out. Wrapping up this month's theme on entertainment, focusing on TV, movies, and music. We're just so blessed here in the state of Ohio to have so much talent. And that talent is all over this state. There are so many local venues you could go to as far as for music. There's so much entertainment in Ohio. And I really encourage you to get out about during this wonderful year as we celebrate America's 250 here in Ohio and check out all the local talent that we have here in this great state of Ohio.